I'm not going to be going over a ton of what I'm doing during the sculpting phase of this, but I did want to show you the process. Before anything else, I coated my life cast in soap and let it dry. This is so the sculpts can be floated off once they're done. A product called Owl Coat works better than soap, but I didn't have any on hand. My witch look is basically an old age makeup, so I referenced multiple images of very old people to get the correct wrinkle patterns. I like to sculpt old age prosthetics by adding little worms of clay where the main wrinkles are, and when you smooth these out, you have your base wrinkles. It's easier for me to do it this way than to build up clay then carve the wrinkles out. I did heck up a bit on this sculpt. It's been a few years since I had to float a sculpt off a life cast, so out of habit I really feathered and smoothed down the edges. If you're going to float a sculpt off a life cast, you don't want to smooth down the edges during the initial sculpting phase because it makes it way harder to get off your life cast. When it comes to texture, you can use a thin piece of plastic to create more realistic wrinkles and pores. The plastic dulls whatever sculpting tool you use on top of it and creates a nice organic texture. I also like to use stipple sponge to add a very subtle texture, and this also helps to lessen any texture that's too intense. Also, this clay is called Chavant. This is what most SFX artists use for sculpting prosthetics. It never dries, it's reusable, you can soften it with heat and smooth it with isopropyl alcohol. It takes a bit of getting used to when you first start using it because it's rather firm, but you can always heat it slightly so it's easier to manipulate. When my sculpt was done, I cut down to the life cast between certain wrinkles to break the piece into segments: forehead, cheeks, chin, upper lip, and nose pieces. Then I fully submerged it in my bathtub. You can also use a bucket, but my life cast is a little too big. I left it in for a while until I saw the edges beginning to lift, then I took it out, peeled all the pieces off my life cast, and laid them flat on paper plates, smoothing out the edges and touching up the texture. If you're not doing a full face, say you just want to make a zombie bite or something like that, you can just sculpt it on a flat surface in the first place. Now they're ready to mold. Now this was the first time I used this technique and I'm still working out the kinks. I do want to try it again to see if I can get a better result. And if I do, I will make a dedicated tutorial. When making Prosade transfers, you have to make silicone molds, but silicone is very expensive, and I saw a hack on Pinterest that you can use silicone caulk to make molds of objects, so I wanted to try it with transfers. You simply put the caulk in a disposable bucket that's filled with dish soap and water and knead it until it forms a ball. Now please, wear gloves while doing this. I didn't because I didn't have any, but I do not recommend doing this barehanded. Silicone caulk releases chemicals while curing that are pretty irritating to the skin, and do this in a well-ventilated area or even outside because it also releases not so nice fumes. Once it's ready, simply press it on whatever you want to mold, making sure you press it into all the nooks and crannies. I did this on all of my pieces and ended up needing 2 tubes of caulk, which cost about $6 each. It took the silicone about half an hour to set, but they still had a harsh scent of vinegar, which is from the acetic acid the caulk releases. I washed them multiple times, but the scent was still present. I'd recommend leaving them outside for about a day to let the fumes dissipate, then soaking them in a baking soda solution. Theoretically, that should get rid of any residual acetic acid, which is what I want to try the next time I use this technique. For now, I wouldn't recommend this for prosthetic molding due to the residual acetic acid that will transfer to the Prosade transfers and end up drying out and irritating your skin a bit. But this method does capture a lot of detail, so I would recommend it for props or similar purposes, but be aware that this silicone is not food safe, so it shouldn't be used to make food or candy molds. To make the actual transfers, you'll need Prosade, fumed silica, aka Cabasil, and makeup to tint it. Fumed silica is very dangerous to breathe when it's in its powdered form, so wear a dust mask. Release the molds with petroleum jelly, then mix up the concoction. The ratio isn't exact, you just want it to be nice and spreadable, kind of like peanut butter. so add the Cavasil in small amounts until you get it just right. You don't have to add pigment, but it makes it so you don't have to add a base color during application. So if you made a zombie bite and tinted it to the color of your skin, you wouldn't have to color match later. Just keep in mind that it darkens when it dries, so you want to mix a color lighter than what you want the final color to be. If you look at the color I mixed up, it barely reads as green, but if you watch my witch tutorial where I used these transfers, they ended up a nice sickly green color. To fill the molds, just spatula the mix into the molds and use the long edge of a tongue depressor to level it out. Use disposable mixing sticks and containers for this because it's nearly impossible to clean this stuff out of containers since it's just thickened adhesive. Once the molds are filled, either leave them out for a few days so all the moisture can evaporate, or put them in the fridge or freezer overnight to speed up the drying process. When they're ready to use, they'll be slightly tacky to the touch, but solid, not gooey.
The floor is lava! The floor is lava! What's that? Yo! What's that? Lava! What's that? Yo! The floor is lava!
I also wanted to include how I made the little scarification pieces for my chest. I simply drew out the symbols and put that under some plastic that I could peel the pieces off when they dried. I put mask latex in an empty puffy paint bottle and traced my templates. Then I left them to dry. This was super easy to do, and I want to play around more with this technique and see what else I can use it for. Congratulations, you have made it to my end screen. Click that top link to see these transfers in action, or click that bottom link to check out a video YouTube's robots think you'll like. Click that square to help me make more videos, and if you want to make sure you don't miss a single video from me in the future, click that little circle with my face in it to subscribe.